The Catholic Church was the religious center of Europe, responsible for the souls of everyone from kings to serfs. The Church promised salvation, but threatened damnation. That damnation threat made them powerful and often intolerant. Jesus was a remarkable religious leader, and his teachings led to a new faith, Christianity. The New Testament had both Peter and Paul in Rome, where they were probably executed. The early Christians were often persecuted by the Romans, but increasing numbers joined the new faith. In 313 CE, the Roman Emperor Constantine issued the Edict of Milan, which accepted Christianity. Within a decade, it became the official religion of the empire. As military domination vanished, the Church became the power leader of the Middle Ages, able to crown a Holy Roman Emperor and threaten excommunication to unruly kings. The power of the Catholic Church was centered on the Vatican in Rome under the Pope. Powerful bishops had their cathedrals, usually in important cities. Even villages had parish churches with semi-educated clergy. The church hierarchy had its own aristocracy and more common folk. There were many positives. The church was a major distributor of charity, usually food. Hospitals were available for the sick, and shelter for travelers. Clerics were scholars, favoring both education and preserving history. Monasteries and abbeys became key institutions during the Middle Ages. Christian tradition has well-known hermits and future saints, beginning with Paul of Thebes in the 4th century. Monastic life seems to have started in 4th century Egypt as desert theology. Benedict of Nursia founded the monastery at Monte Cassino, Italy, during the 6th century. He established the Order of St. Benedict, a set of strict rules for monastic life. Food was seen as a temptation to gluttony. Fasting became formal within the church and expanded. According to the rule of St. Benedict, eating was relatively simple, usually 2 meals a day. Dinner happened at noon. Hot dishes could include vegetable soup, possibly a plate of vegetables, wine, and bread. Cheese, eggs, and fruit could be included. A limited supper after evening prayer might be bread and wine, perhaps with seasonal items such as fruit. On fast days, a single meal would be served about 3 in the afternoon. As nobles, abbots ate better, including multiple meat treats and bacon. Monks could eat more, including meat and fowl, at the discretion of the abbot. There were several orders of monks in addition to Benedictines, following different food requirements. Monasteries and abbeys were expected to be self-sufficient, including growing their own food. Extensive land holdings could mean substantial farming, including cereals, fruits, vegetables, sheep, cattle, and fowl. Various industries were possible, from baking or wool shearing to cloth making or wineries. Monasteries and feudalism were interrelated. Bishops and abbots were aristocrats, but second sons similar to the hierarchies existing with earls and barons. Other monks were sons of knights and squires. The poor could become lay members, more focused on manual labor than prayer. Abbeys could be directly part of the feudal system, with abbots being lords over some domains, with manor houses and serfs having limited rights and severe obligations. Monasteries influenced the medieval world in multiple ways. Monastic scholars included important historians such as 8th century Benedictine monk Bede. The church had a near monopoly on scholarship. Monasteries and churches had schools, with universities starting in the 11th century, including Oxford and Cambridge. Many early monks were missionaries, converting pagan Europeans to Christianity. Possibly the most influential missionary was St. Patrick, a Gaul who converted the Irish. Monasteries were major food producers, employing lay members and laborers. Sheep raising became a major revenue source as wool became more valuable. Monasteries produced all the foods associated with the Middle Ages. Economic relationships could be complex. The monasteries could produce surpluses and exchange these for other products or expand their holdings. Surpluses also could be used for expanded almsgiving. There was never a lack of poor people. Monasteries could be brewers and vintners, with beer more likely in northern sites. Records indicate that as much as a gallon a day of beer could be served to each monk. Consequently, brewhouses and kilns for malting barley were common. At the time, beer was reasonably nutritious. Monks became experts at growing grapes and making wine, crucial considering how important communion was. Chaucer's friar in Canterbury Tales knew the taverns well in every town. They initially used cellars to store and age wine, but mainly to hide the wine from Vikings and other marauders. Dom Perignon was a cellar master at a French abbey. He discovered that adding sugar to the barrel, then using a second short fermentation, produced champagne after bottling and aging. At his first taste, he explained, "Come quickly, I am tasting stars." Perignon found that bottles stored diagonally worked best, as did a cork stopper. He died in 1715 and buried in the vineyard. When the abbey was destroyed during the French Revolution, his tomb remained. The vineyard still exists, and the best champagne still called Dom Perignon. Monasteries suffered greatly during the Reformation as Protestant movements throughout Europe created chaos. Particularly harmful was English King Henry VIII creating the Anglican Church. Eyeing their wealth, Henry dissolved all monasteries and took over their property. Most clergy and monks converted on penalty of death. Some monasteries became churches, but most buildings and land were sold. The buildings were either converted to other uses or destroyed. This destruction effectively ended feudalism in England, as traditional relationships with abbeys ended in massive amounts of land fenced and used to raise sheep. The process in France had to wait for the French Revolution of 1789, when monasteries were looted and property confiscated. It's on to feudalism. What was it and how did it work? There were formal hierarchies and everyone knew their place, essentially fighting, praying, or farming. Despite the formal structure, feudalism differed from place to place and over time. It was inefficient for many reasons, and the treatment of the peasants was up to the lords. It was neither democratic nor capitalistic. Next time, on food history and mystery.